Hello, welcome to QT News.
Hello.
From bushfires and droughts to cyclones and floods, Queensland summers are known to bring extreme weather. In preparation for the upcoming storm season, a range of authorities gathered in Brisbane to discuss the risks facing the state this summer. Fire and Emergency Services Minister Craig Crawford says it's vital to prepare for Queensland's rapid extreme weather changes.
We could go from dry areas to flooded areas literally inside of a day or two. And it's about making sure that as a department and all departments that work with us on disasters, that we're ready for that turnaround to happen.
Today's brief looked at emergency responses from past seasons and predictions for this year.
The state government will be closely monitoring weather conditions in the next couple of weeks to gain a better idea of the type of season ahead and allow residents to be best prepared.
We've now already started work on what does our upcoming wet season look like as far as storms, cyclones, floods and the like. It's still a 50-50 as to whether we're having an El Nino or not, so we're constantly getting the update from the Bureau in relation to that.
Authorities hope Queensland will be ready. Daniele, Antonaglia, QT News.
More than 120 civilians have died in Syria amid escalating tensions. New footage on social media shows airstrikes decimating buildings. Northwest Syria is the only significant territory still in rebel hands. The region is home to 3 million people, although more than half have already fled the fighting.
From a rundown industrial area to Brisbane's newest dining, entertainment and relaxation precinct, the old Howard Smith wharves are undergoing a major transformation. The new parkland is one step closer to completion, with the last patch of turf laid by councillors this morning.
But during the day, there'll be people down here picnicking, they'll be using the restaurants. They will really be celebrating this amazing transformation of a historic site into an active, vibrant and dynamic new precinct.
80% of the area will be open parkland, where locals can enjoy the view.
There'll be a kayak ramp, there'll be lots of places for people to sit and enjoy the CBD skyline.
A feature of the area will be 2 cliff-face lifts, providing some of the best views in Brisbane.
Up until now, this space has been a missing link across the Brisbane River, but thanks to this project, it's now connected to the rest of the city.
There are also other economic benefits, including hundreds of jobs.
And at Howard Smith Wharves, we're investing over $200 million and we're creating 800 long-term jobs.
It'll all be open for business later this year. Daniele, Antonaglia, QT News.
The 2019 election is set to be a close call. According to political analysts, there are key issues dividing voters and generations. Bridget O'Brien is with us. And Bridget, we know there's been an increase in young voters, but what about youth candidates? That brings you up to date with QT News. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Daniele Antonaglia reports.
Under current Queensland law, hunting can only take place on private property where an individual has the permission of the landholder. Some Queensland residents have urged the government to allow recreational hunting of feral animals in state forests. Jeff Jones, National President of the Sporting Shooters Association of Australia, supports the idea of hunting on public land as long as it's properly regulated. He says that there are successful models which Queensland could follow, such as the one adopted by Victoria, where a game licence is required for the specific animal being hunted.
As I say, both in New Zealand and Victoria, it's been proven to be very, very safe, properly regulated, properly controlled. There are very few problems, and in that situation, we'd be quite happy to support that type of system. But certainly we don't support the concept of just open slather, because some areas of public land are not appropriate for hunting.
Mr. Jones says that a coordinated program for conservation hunters can help control the number of feral pests.
Where there are a coordinated program, the results have been proven to be positive. There is always that potential benefit, but it's far less in an uncoordinated fashion. So there's always a positive benefit, because we have a lot of pests in Australia and they need to be managed, but I'm expecting great result from casual hunting. We're sort of drawing a little bit of a long bow.
But Andrew Bartlett, the Greens candidate for Brisbane, is totally opposed to the idea of conservation hunting.
The whole suggestion of something called conservation hunting is just a joke. It's a complete contradiction in terms. It's nothing other than just a cover for people that want to slaughter wild animals, and trying to say that it's got some conservation benefits just a con.
The former federal senator says that there are more effective and humane ways to deal with the problem of feral animals.
If you're wanting to actually eradicate a particular species, then it's got to be done thoroughly, it's got to be done scientifically. Ideally, it's got to be done in a way that has minimal welfare impacts for the animals, and that would be something far better than just people going out and shooting things. If that does need to be done in certain circumstances, it should be done by accredited professionals.
The petition has been sponsored by Katter Party MP Nick DeMeadow and will be debated in Parliament if 10,000 people sign it. Daniele, Antonaglia, QUT News.
New research from the CSIRO has confirmed the detrimental effects that our plastic waste is having on endangered sea turtles. Daniele, Antonaglia reports.
It has long been known that plastic is very common in the digestive system of turtles, with over a third of the world's turtles said to have it in their gut. Whether this plastic passes through the animals in digestion or is lethal has been less clear. Chris Wilcox, a senior research scientist at the CSIRO in Hobart, says each piece of plastic that a turtle swallows increases their chances of dying.
So what we found was, on average, one piece of plastic increased their chance of dying by about 20%. And by the time they ate about 14 pieces of plastic, their chance of dying went up by 50%. So that's 1 in 2.
Turtles are drawn to plastic bags because they look like jellyfish and crustaceans, which they eat, with some turtles having swallowed hundreds of plastic items in their lifetime. Dr. Wilcox says so much plastic ends up in our oceans because the raw material has no value. He encourages the container deposit scheme over a total plastic ban.
Bans make sense for specific things, but we really need to approach the regulation of plastic way up at the raw material. And we need to think about ways to change the value of that plastic, the economic value, which will change people's behavior. So, for instance, container deposit schemes.
Jimmy Cordwell of the Australian Marine Conservation Society says that by 2050, our oceans will be home to more plastic than fish. He says that while action on the part of individuals is important, our government needs to step up in their response to help our oceans.
Reducing Australia's and Queensland's and Brisbane's plastic footprint, we have to be supported by local government and by state government and by federal government and by industry. So as much as we make a change in our own life, we still have to also demand that our government support us as well.
Daniele, Antonaglia, QUT News.
Fiji's Prime Minister has warned Australia that climate change is no laughing matter and poses an enormous threat to Fijians and Pacific Islanders. The Fijian Prime Minister took advantage of Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison's Pacific visit, calling him on to put the welfare of the Pacific people before the welfare of a single industry. Mr. Morrison is the first Australian Prime Minister to visit Fiji since 2006, with this trip aimed at shoring up Australia's influence in the nation, which has been home to Chinese investment as of late. Now to the weather. The weather in Brisbane this morning is partly cloudy and 31 degrees. This has been Dan and Jack with your 8am Z Lines. For more on these stories, find us on Facebook and Twitter at 4ZZZ News.